So this is where I was living. I felt really fortunate. I lived in Mendoza, which was close to the border of Chile. It was about, I lived about an hour south of the capital of Mendoza. So I lived in the province of Mendoza, and then I lived an hour south of the capital of Mendoza. So I lived in a really, really small town, about 4,000 people. So it was really small. This was right here. Do we have like a pointer thing? Or just, okay. So this was on the street, like the main street of my city, where we would walk with our friends, go find the bus stop. You can see the mountains in the back. Right here was in El Manzano, which was about an hour and a half from my house. And we would go there on the weekends to eat with our family, drink mate, stuff like that. Right here, this picture was outside of my bedroom window, so I got to wake up to the sunset every morning, or this was the sunrise. Wow. But, this was the sunrise, but I did get to wake up to the sun, or no, that was the sunset, and I got to wake up to the sunrise every morning. Right here, I got to go on a lot of cool trips with my family. They decided to do like a lot of fun stuff with me. And they told me one day, oh, let's go for a little hike in the mountains. And I was like, yeah, I think that'll be fun. 6 hours later, I had a very bad sunburn, and we ended up there. It was another 2 hours to get back down. So it was a total of 8 hours hiking, and I was not prepared for that. These two places were also in Mendoza in the province, but not near my house. These were actually on a trip that I went to with Rotary. This right here, oh, okay, perfect. This right here was a historic monument in Mendoza, and you can see right here the different colored sands. This was just a lake that we passed by. I thought it was really pretty, so I took a picture of it. So that was about where I lived. The climate, when I got there, it was still pretty cold. So I got there in August, and that was like the end of winter. So I got there, and it was probably, I would say like 65 degrees every day, which was definitely colder than what I was used to in the summer here. And then it went into summer. And we were in summer for, I don't know, a couple months. It got really hot in the summer though, and really, really humid, which I was not used to. And then in the winter, in July, so I left July 16th, and I would wake up in the morning to go to school, and would be -2 degrees Celsius. So very cold.
So is that up in the mountains?
So I didn't actually live in the mountains. I kind of lived in a valley, but you could see, right here, we would travel about an hour and a half, and we would be in the mountains. And then right here as well. But this is where I live. You can see the mountains in the background right here. So these were kind of the Rotary Exchange students that I got to meet right here. This picture is my whole district. There were only 2 girls from North America, me and another girl from Pennsylvania. So that was kind of fun. I met a lot of people from Belgium and France. I think like the majority of my district were from there, so they spoke a lot of French to each other. This was one of my best friends. Her name is Mel. She lives in Brazil, and we got really close. This was kind of like my group of exchange friends. She is from Germany, she's from Denmark, and then she's from Brazil. One of the coolest experience, I think, in my opinion, was we got to go on a trip to the whole south of Argentina. And the coolest thing that I think I got to do on my exchange was hike on top of a glacier. And you can see here with my flag. Down here, if you, okay. So we had to wear these shoes that had spikes like this big on the bottom so we could hike on the glacier. And it was really hard to walk. You kind of had to walk like this so you didn't drag your feet in the snow. The water, so you can see right here how there were kind of like pools of water in the glacier. You could actually drink it because it was so fresh and pure. And it was like, I know water doesn't have a taste, but it really did have a taste. It tasted like really pure and just fresh. So these were my classmates. So in Argentina, in my school at least, I went to a private Catholic school. And so this was my whole class. We were about 25 students. And I was with them in the classroom all day, and the teachers actually switched around to different classrooms. And I went to school from 7:30 a.m. to 12:30 a.m. every day, so that was kind of fun. And I think we had 13 different classes. So some days we would have, do you have a question?
Did you give a sweatshirt to that one girl? Is she wearing a tiger?
No, that's me. Yeah. I just changed a lot. Yeah, so that's me in the tiger sweatshirt. Yeah. So I think we had 13 different classes, and every day I think we had about 4 or 5. The class schedule, it wasn't the same every week. So we had, it was kind of confusing for me. I never really knew what classes we had each day. So these were all the girls in my class. I did have to wear a uniform, which was very different for me. We had to wear a shirt with the logo on it on the side right here, and then a skirt with the socks and the shoes. So very traditional Catholic school uniform, and I still have my uniform. I really love it. It's hanging up in my closet. Everyone was asking me, they were like, why do you like wearing a uniform so much? I would love to just wear my own clothes to school every day. And I was like, well, you don't understand. This is so cool for me to wear a uniform. In this picture here, these 2 girls, so what they do, when I got there, I was in the junior class, and then I went into summer, and then when we went back to school, I was in the senior class. So they did this thing where the seniors each had 2 different students in they would be freshmen. And so my school is really good with letting me participate in just about everything at the school. And so I actually had to kind of be a mentor to these 2 girls, and they asked me questions about everything. They were so nice that we still talk to this day. And I kind of got to be their mentor, so that was a really cool thing for me, just to even see that the school wanted me to be a part of things, and they wanted me to kind of just integrate into the school like that. I really liked my school. I got really close with just about every teacher, just because it was such a small school in such a small town that everyone basically knew each other. So that was kind of fun. So I had some problems with my first host family, and I was in this host family for the majority of the time. My first host family that I got put in, they didn't really want to have an exchange student, so in about, I think the middle of December, they told Rotary that they didn't want me living with them anymore and that I had to find a new house. So yeah, that was it was kind of hard for me to hear that as an exchange student that they didn't want me living in their house. But luckily, I think he was the secretary of my Rotary Club, and he happened to have, this is his daughter, she was in my class, we were really, really good friends. And so they basically took me into their home, and they said, well, of course you can live with us, our home is always open to you. And so I ended up living with them for most of my exchange. You can see down here, I was definitely the tallest. My host family, that was also another thing that was kind of strange to me. I got there and I felt like a giant. It was kind of weird because most of my friends are this short or shorter. And for me, that was, and even the boys are they're not that tall. They're as a country, I think they're definitely shorter. So it was really weird for me to walk in, and I also have blonde hair and blue eyes, which was very different for them. They kind of looked at me and they were like, oh yeah, she's American, we know that. And so it was kind of strange for me to kind of be I stood out very, very easily within my friends and stuff. This is a picture of my host mom. So I really consider these people my second family. I'm already going back. They invited me for Christmas, so I'm already going back to visit them in December. So yeah, this is my host mom, my host dad. He's wearing one of my jackets in this picture. This is me cooking them chicken noodle soup. They thought it was the best thing they've ever had, which is kind of weird because we kind of think of that as just a normal food you eat when you're sick, but they were this is so weird, why would you put chicken in a soup? So that was really fun. I got to cook for them a lot. Oops. This picture really describes me and my host sister. We ended up becoming really, really good friends. She's probably my best friend. And we actually got to go on a trip to the south of Argentina. So what happened was, this family took me on a trip, and then my first host family said, oh, we don't want you living with us. So I moved into this host family after the trip, but I didn't know that. And so in this picture right here, we were in this like outdoor pool, and you can see in the back there's kind of like the mountains, which is really fun. And we have like a really fun relationship. We're definitely kind of crazy people together. This was my other host sister. She was a year younger than me, so she's 16. And she was also really, really fun. Like, I really love her. We still talk today. I still talk to all of them, actually. We still have a group chat that we talk in every day, so yeah. One thing in my host family that was kind of weird is I had to share a room with both of my host sisters, which I've never had to share a room before, so and that's normal down there. So like in my first host family, I shared a room with my other host sister, and then all the brothers, there were 3 brothers, and they all shared a room. And so it's kind of just like normal down there, like if you have siblings, you share a room with them. But I definitely wasn't used to that. So it took me a little bit to get like accustomed to like sharing a room with people and sharing a bathroom with a lot of people, kind of just like sharing my space, because I was always used to like having my own space before. So that was definitely interesting for me. One thing that I really loved about my host family was they had dogs. I really love dogs. So this is a picture, I think my first week when I arrived there, so the mom, this one right here, Uma, she had, I think 6 puppies. And my host family kept this one because he was like a miracle dog. They had to give him CPR for I think like a couple hours at least for him to keep living. So they decided to keep him. They were actually born on the day that I arrived. So it was kind of cool. Yeah, I went over to their house. This was, I think, the first week, and then right here, this picture is like the last week I was there. So you can see kind of how he grew. This one's name is Scrappy. And it was really funny. I tried to explain to my family because they were like, oh, like, does Scrappy mean anything in English? And I was like, well, yeah, Scrappy's kind of like, I don't know, like a piece of, just kind of scratch, I kind of explained it to them, and they were like, oh, so he's like a piece of trash. And I was like, well, not really, but sort of. They were really fun. They slept with me every night in my bed, so that was kind of fun. But yeah, I probably missed a lot of stuff, so if you guys have any questions, that would be a good time. Yeah.
What do you miss most about Argentina, and what do you not miss?
Okay, I miss everything. I'll go into detail about that. So one thing that they do when you greet each other, you do like the kisses on the cheeks, either one or both. It kind of just depends on where you live or who you grew up with. And that's like one thing I really miss about that is just kind of the closeness that they have in their relationships. Because here it's just, oh, like you shake their hand, and I feel like it's very distant. Like after going to a South American country where they're always hugging, there's no personal space. Like personal space is not a thing down there. That's like one thing that I really, really miss the most. Another thing is kind of just like the schedule and how they do things. So like a normal day for me would be, I would wake up at 7, my host mom would take us to school at around like 7:20. It was really easy to wake up late because I just had to put my uniform on and that was it. We'd go to school until about 12:30. We'd come home. My host mom would already have us lunch made, like on the table. We'd just come home and eat. After that, we would take a nap. Love it. It was so great. Probably from about 1:30 to 5 or like 8, depending on the day. Yeah, so it was really interesting down there. So from like 12:30 or 1 until about 4ish, everything would be closed. So if you would go out on the street and you'd want to like buy something, there would be nothing open. Nobody would be on the streets because everybody would be taking their nap. My host dad was actually a doctor, and my host mom was the secretary for his doctor's office. And they would come home every day at 12 and then go back to the office at 4. And so it was just kind of like, it was really nice to have that like kind of in between time after school and before like doing homework, just to kind of like rest. We didn't always nap, like we could watch Netflix, it was kind of just a time to be like in your bed or like kind of just hang out. After that, I would wake up and I would either go, well, we'd have like a snack. After the nap, we would have a snack. And then we'd either do homework, hang out with our friends, just kind of like go to the plaza and we would hang out. After that, we would eat dinner probably like 10:30 or 11 every night. which sounds like really late, but it's kind of nice because after dinner, we would just like clean up and go straight to bed, which I like better than eating at like 6 p.m. I came back and my mom was like, oh, like let's eat dinner, and I was like, why? It's 6:30, and she was like, well, that's like normal. And for me, that was just like not normal at all. So I kind of miss just like the routine of like my day-to-day life. I think that's like one of the things I miss the most. I also miss my host family a lot. They were really, really good to me. One thing that I don't miss, I'm trying to think. Oh, well, I don't know if I don't miss it, but it was kind of nice to come back to Oregon and have all the trees and like the green mountains and stuff, because I lived in like a desert. And so everything, like all the trees and the plants that were planted by man. They're not natural. So I lived in the desert, and so it was kind of nice to come home and have like the green trees. Yeah. Yes.
Can you tell us about the school? How was it similar, different from ours? What was it like for you?
It was very, very different. And just like the fact that we would all, so we had about 25 students in my class, like I said, and we would just stay in that one classroom all day, and then the teachers would move around from different classrooms. We also, it kind of depended on the class. Like I said, the schedules, like I never really got used to like how they did it. Like I never really learned how the schedules were specifically. So some classes would be like an hour and a half, but other classes would be like 45 minutes. It kind of just depended on the day and the subject. I also, one class that was like really interesting was like, oh, what is it in English? It's like, I can't think of the words in English, but basically it was like a theology class kind of about like religion, and we would learn like a bunch of stuff about like the Bible and stuff like that, and that was really interesting for me because in my house here, we're not very religious. Like I've never had that like background before, so it was really interesting. I got to talking to the teacher one day, and she was like, oh, like what do you know about like being a Catholic? And I was like, well, basically nothing. And so we kind of sat down one day and she explained like everything there is about the religion, and it was really interesting to kind of like get that perspective because I've never really thought about it before. Like I'm not a very religious person, so it was really interesting to kind of just like hear her point of view and like how it affected her life and how it affected my school and stuff like that. It was also different because we went home at 12:30 every day, but we still had like a full class schedule, so we had like 5 classes a day. Other things that were different, we didn't have like projectors or anything like tablets, computers. They would all write everything on the board. And Flora actually mentioned a really interesting point today when we were giving the presentation, was that it gives you kind of a more one-on-one with the teacher because everything is, like it's not through technology, it's through like the person themselves. So I think that was like a really, really interesting thing that I didn't really think about until Flora mentioned it. Yeah.
Did you know you were going to a Catholic school when you, I mean, if you're not religious, what, did you have a choice to get,
No, so actually I didn't know that I was going to a Catholic school. So I arrived, I think on the 26th of August, and my host mom the next day was like, oh, well, we have to go buy your uniform. And I was like uniform for what? And she was like, oh, like school, like you're gonna go to this school. And I was like, okay, like that's cool. So, cause like I knew going as an exchange student that I could be put in like a Catholic school or like a different, you know, like not like necessarily just a regular public school like we have here. And so I was like really open to the idea of going to a different school and kind of learning something else. And I also thought it was really cool that we got to wear a uniform. Yeah.
So I saw a mate cup up there. Did you drink it a lot? Do you like it?
Every day, yes.
Okay.
We drink it in the morning, in the afternoon, at night. It was like, it's one of those things that really kind of brings friends together because it's a very social thing. So you would have just one, and then you'd like pass it around in a circle until like basically the water ran out. And so it was like a very social activity, and it was very, very, very common. Like every day we would drink it in the morning, afternoon. We'd drink it at school. Basically, like it's just one of those things. I'm trying to think of something like that's kind of similar to it here.
Alfalfa.
Yeah. It's basically just like a tea, so you put the leaves in it and then you pour hot water over it. Yeah. And I really like it. I still drink it at my house here.
She has it in the house.
Yeah.
You should mention what you and Floor did this morning.
I did. Okay, so I kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, but we went to a 4th grade classroom today, and it was an immersion school, so they started learning Spanish when they were kindergartners, and I was talking to the teacher's actually my neighbor, and he kind of asked me, he was like, you should come to my school and kind of give a presentation on why it's really cool to be bilingual, because at this like age, these kids are kind of like, oh well, like we don't need Spanish anymore, like they're kind of not really interested in it anymore. So we went to the school and we gave like a presentation, like I showed them these pictures and we kind of like explained to them the benefits of going on exchange or even just learning another language, and they seemed really into it. It was really cool to kind of like, and it was also really cool to like have a classroom of like little kids, 4th graders, and be able to like communicate with them in a different language. That was really, really cool for me to see. Any other questions?
Did you go to a Rotary Club meeting there?
Yeah, I did. So so my Rotary Club down there was basically just a group of friends who decided to become Rotarians. So the club meetings were like very, very fun, I guess. They were very fun people. Like down there, they're just very fun people anyways. They're very energetic, always wanting to do stuff. So our club meetings would be at like 9:30 to like 10:30 or 11 on Thursdays at night. And we would basically just get together, have dinner. We would talk about things that we did or that we were going to do like with the Rotary Club and stuff like that. One thing that I got to do with Rotary, which was kind of interesting, we had like a whole pig and we were trying to like sell it. So we went around and we had this pig. It was probably about like from here to the end of this table, just a full pig. And we had it in the back of this pickup truck, like kind of on a table, like mounted up. And we drove through the streets of my town and we were like selling raffle tickets to people to like raise money for Rotary. And so we kind of raffled off a pig, which was really fun. Yeah. Oh, you would not even believe. So I got there and I thought, oh, like I had 2 years of Spanish in school, like I'm gonna have a really good foundation, right? Very, very wrong. I got there and I didn't understand a single word. One, because they speak a different dialect of Spanish, so it's a little different from the Spanish I learned in school. And they also speak really, really fast. And I was not ready for that. So I kind of got there and I basically communicated with my family and friends with Google Translate for a while, which was kind of hard because sometimes things don't translate like exactly into English or exactly into Spanish. But I would say like probably after about 2 months, I started to understand just about everything that people told me, and then about after 3 months, I was speaking pretty fluently. And I would say now I speak fluent Spanish. Mostly because also in my town, there was only about 2 people who spoke like fluent English, so I didn't really have the opportunity to speak English, which was like amazing. At first I was like, oh, I wish I had someone to speak English with. And then at the end of my exchange, when I became fluent in Spanish, I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm so happy there was no one to speak English with. Yeah.
So how have your future plans adjusted? I mean, you're gotta be thinking about that, or maybe
Yeah.
you should cover his ears.
So before my exchange, I was really set on going to a 4-year college. What I wanted to major in has changed so much over the past like couple of years anyways, but I was really set on going to a 4-year college. Now I have no idea what I want to do. I have like 12 different options that I'm like thinking about, and I have like no idea what I'm gonna do. There's like 4-year college, community college, alternative college, gap year, going to teach English in Argentina. There's just so many options that I want to do, so I'm kind of confused right now, but yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
What's it like being back in high school here?
So hard. People did tell me how hard it was going to be, but I didn't believe them. I got back, and I remember landing, so I landed in Houston. That was my first stop in America, and I got off the plane, and everyone was speaking English, and I was like, what is this? I was like, why am I understanding everything perfectly? It was so strange coming back and hearing English. And I came back, everything was fine for like a week. Like I saw my friends, everything was like a big reunion. And then I was like, okay, wow, like I really want to go back now. I was like, a week was fine, and now I want to leave. And so it was really, really hard kind of just like being back and getting back into the routine of things here. And then I went to school. And that was really, really tough, sitting in a classroom for an hour and a half a day. Well, not an hour and a half a day, but an hour and a half each class, and just sitting there and focusing and not being able to be loud and be crazy like I was used to. And things are honestly still pretty hard. And I think it's mostly just due to the fact that people here are very, very cold compared to people in Argentina. And I was not used to that. And people told me, oh, it's gonna be hard for you, but you're gonna it's gonna be fine. And it still is gonna be fine, but it's been really hard getting used to like the way people interact here. I think that's the hardest thing for me. Any other questions? I think we're out of time, so that's perfect.